Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis. This show is a weekly series called the Network of Global Corporate Control that has been coming to you from DCTV for nearly 2 years. Today's segment is live and is called The Banking Cartel is Melting Like Snow in the Sunlight. Thanks to DCTV, Carmen Stanley, studio producer and director, Maurice Jackson, audio and prompter, and Cruchet Starnes, floor director. Next week's show, which we are pre-recording later today, is about the war on cash. I would like to break off the teleprompter for a minute and just explain to you about what a green room is. Some people were worried that they couldn't see my hands. The reason is because of the way the green room would make it appear that my arms are discontinued. And another person asked me to show my teeth because they were afraid for some reason that I had lost all my teeth, so I'll give you a grin. Okay, that's the end of that business. This series exposes the corruption in our money system. The group behind this corruption has been losing control because it required secrecy, and we've been exposing them. Who are they? The Jesuits are part of this group, the banking cartel is another part, and ancient bloodline families stretching back to the Templars, to Switzerland, and before that, to the pharaohs in Egypt. This is the head of the snake. We have shown many times how the real culprits are hiding behind other culprits. All of humanity is united in taking out the head of the snake and cleaning up the corruption in our money system. There's a lot going on because these culprits are trying to disprove our statement in last week's segment that we are stronger than the banking cartel. The battle for control is taking place in every country of the world. There's a coalition for the rule of law on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. The Bretton Woods institutions were created by Jose Rizal and Ferdinand Marcos at the end of World War II to administer the world's wealth. The Coalition for the Rule of Law on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF has won the battle against the banking cartel in the minutes of the spring meetings that were mailed to the Development Committee, emailed to the embassies in Tokyo and missions in New York, and tweeted on the internet. There have been no dissenting votes. These minutes are reality. The problem is the corruption in the money system, which we have been disclosing. Enough people have been learning about this corruption to create a coalition to clean it up. I am in a strategic place, which is the legal department of the World Bank. It's no accident. I went to the World Bank's legal department with this mission to fight corruption in mind. I didn't know how deep the corruption was, but I had an inkling. I had written a legislative history of the G77, which is a group of 134 developing countries, and a cornerstone in the coalition for the rule of law that is cleaning up the corruption in the money system. The United States is also a key player, but the United States was corrupted by the head of the snake. Fortunately, I have stuck with the problem that I uncovered because I also learned from the power transition model that came to me at the World Bank in 2004 from the U.S. War College that coalitions existed there to clean up the corruption. I have recorded our progress. These records also show how we are winning. Here is what I said about the global currency reset last year. Quote, "Your comment is being reviewed by a moderator. The entire premise of your article is wrong. Christine Lagarde is not in charge at the IMF. The Board of Governors of the IMF and World Bank's 188 member countries are. Christine Lagarde is actually fired, but the corruption in the international financial system is such that Lagarde is still sitting there in the Secretariat, while the ministers on the Board of Governors take their decisions elsewhere. Where else? In the Global Debt Facility, which is a trust that contains the world's monetary gold reserves, other precious metals, gemstones, and art treasures. It is taking a while for these facts to sink in, owing to the complicit legal, accounting, and journalism professions. These groups have more in common with the oldest profession than anything else. To see how close we are to a breakthrough, just follow the controversy involving the sudden death of Anton Scalia, after I posted Scalia's and Thomas's picture accusing them of corruption, and the hasty transport of Scalia's body out of Texas to evade the required autopsy, and the flawed nomination of Merrick Garland in his place. Garland was the junior judge on the three-judge panel that canceled oral arguments in my case, and they relied on the lower court opinion, although a reasoned opinion was required. Garland refused to acknowledge that the court was not the court required under Article 3 of the Constitution, and that is because the Constitution of 1789 is not in effect, and he refused to recognize the settlement of my case by the Board of Governors. The chances that reality prevails instead of the false matrix created by the network of global corporate control identified Vitali, Gladfelder, and Battiston of ETH Zurich, it is a whopping 90 to 95%, according to the power transition model that came to the World Bank from the National Defense College in 2004, and which is tracking beautifully. One of the indicators that the globalists are losing is the spread of this information like wildfire on the internet. But the best indicator is that people are finally asking who owns the world's gold. The Global Debt Facility has liens in 10 of the 11 states where the Federal Reserve Bank is located, and Jesse White, the Secretary of State in Illinois, who attempted to invalidate the lien on the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, and that is why the Fed moved from New York to Chicago last year. It is an endangered species after 188 ministers of finance and development cleared my letter that the lien on the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago was still valid. My comment on an article discussing who owns the gold beneath the Bank of England went viral. Quote, "The Bank of England is not the owner of the gold referred to in this article. As established in the notarial protest, the gold is owned by the Global Debt Facility, which is a trust which all the countries of the world agree is administered by the World Bank and IMF. At the recently concluded spring meetings, that was last year's spring meetings, it was agreed that the paper currencies of the world will be exchanged for national currencies out of gold and local currencies like the Bristol pound to be issued by villages and towns. Why haven't you heard this? The UK is in interregnum, and its MPs, who have been lying and stonewalling and dragging their feet, are part of the problem. My comment about Ferdinand Marcos also went viral. Marcos established the Global Debt Facility for José Rizal, known as Father Antonio Diaz, when he was Superior General of the Society of Jesus at the end of World War II. Jose Rizal restored the world's wealth to the world's people to take effect after a 50-year period of hiding to invalidate any competing claims under the statute of limitations. Claims become stale and are no longer valid if you cannot make good on them in 50 years. I have gotten used to the job of being a World Bank whistleblower at the very center of the world's financial system. I often wondered what it was going to take to prove to people that they were getting bamboozled and lied to, and that I was telling them the truth. I actually knew that ethics was going to be a very big part of this task. That was why I hammered my points home each time that I caught the legal profession's chief ethics officer, disciplinary counsel for the District of Columbia, with bad ethics. It was a no-brainer when I saw the last word on page 48 of the October 2016 issue of Washington Lawyer. I tweeted about Gene Shipp. Gene Shipp's sanctimonious words about ethics in the legal profession are a fitting epitaph for the banking cartel. Three mathematicians, Stefania Vitali, James Glatfelder, and Stefano Battiston at the Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, Switzerland, identified a network of global corporate control. This network is often referred to as the banking cartel. In the previous days, I have shown ample proof that the U.S. Constitution of 1789 is not in effect, with not a single word from the legal profession rebutting this conclusive proof. Attached to my tweet in the teleprompter are documents that required rebuttal from Gene Shipp. I have accused Gene Shipp of being highly unethical. These documents show conclusively that Gene Shipp was aware of my accusations, together with conclusive proof that Gene Shipp is highly unethical. Indeed, Gene Shipp, by his dishonesty, has prevented humanity from accessing the nation's monetary gold reserves and other wealth of humanity that was sequestered, that means hidden, in the World Bank and International Monetary Fund for administration by its Board of Governors. Gene Shipp's silence, when rebuttal was required, says it all. In Gene Shipp's own words, quote, "We are required to be ethically responsible to the public we serve," close quote. Gene Shipp is unethical, unaccountable, and irresponsible. The dishonesty in the legal profession is now personified by Neil Gorsuch and Sandy Okoro. Both of these lawyers are just lying, and both of them are bankrupt. Justice Gorsuch has not replied to my letter that describes the actual legal situation. Not a single embassy has defended Sandy Okoro, not even Nigeria's embassy in Tokyo, their mission in New York, or His Excellency Kemi Adeosun, Nigeria's Minister of Finance, or Mr. Hakeem Toyin Balogun, Charge d'Affaires in the Washington Embassy of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This past week has seen a lot of commentary about Neil Gorsuch, and I've written on World Bank letterhead a letter on the 9th of April. Mark Meckler heads an organization called Convention of States, trying to spoil the movement back to the United States Constitution of 1789. The banking cartel put a second secret constitution into effect in 1871 when the Revolutionary War debts fell due, and the United States Congress obliges by extending the state of emergency. The agents of the banking cartel who defended Gorsuch were outed. How could Meckler ignore the clear statement that the United States is operating under martial law? In 1861, the U.S. was placed under secret martial law, and I've given you a quote in the teleprompter in a case It's on page 50. And the quote is, "What most people don't realize is that they have been under martial law rule for over 60 years. Fortunately, enough people are wary of the banking cartel and its agents. One of the easy ways to spot an agent of the banking cartel is to see how they all reveal the other dishonest traders. So it's my pleasure to forward Mark Meckler's email in support of the Gorsuch nomination to the Supreme Court. Neil Gorsuch is a trader and agent of the banking cartel. Neil Gorsuch did not answer the commercial lien which I placed on his assets. This was an admission of guilt and proof of Gorsuch's treason." And Mark Meckler was hosting a special webinar to discuss the appointment of Judge Gorsuch, which I showed you. And when I received it, I just tweeted so that everybody would know that Mark Meckler is an agent of the banking cartel. And that's in the teleprompter. You'll see Mark Meckler's invitation. Mark Meckler confessed that he's an agent of the banking cartel when he had no defense to the clear statement that the United States is under martial law. This was in the Supreme Court of Utah's decision. Now Meckler is bilking the clueless dupes that don't know, as they say in Texas, doo-doo from Shinola. Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are also corrupt agents of the banking cartel. They're play acting on the world stage in the hope that we will believe in them. Actually, the United States Constitution of 1789 is not in force and effect. This means the Electoral College of the U.S. was not empowered to elect Donald Trump into office. As for Vladimir Putin, a critical mass of humanity knows that the banking cartel has been killing their honest people and distorting their history. It was the banking cartel and network of global corporate control that killed 25 million Russians in World War II. We discussed this on March 21st, and I talked about Stalin in the last segment on DCTV. There's a group working with Professor Fomenko in Moscow State University that understands our history has been fabricated, that's made up, by the Jesuits. Professor Fomenko's website was taken down and later restored after I reported that the banking cartel was up to its usual shenanigans and the absence of the website was more damaging than free access to the information on it. Consider Sean Haros's The Pharaoh Show, an octagon seen by Russian Major General Konstantin Petrov. Sean Haros discusses how former Major General Konstantin Petrov revealed this before he died under suspicious circumstances. I'm coughing because there's a lot of pollen in Washington, and I've been having an allergic reaction. The banking cartel is trying to start another Cold War and using Syria as a false flag. I pointed out what was really going on in Syria was the usual threadbare shenanigans of the banking cartel. Discussions about chemical weapons are lies. Actually, the so-called victims of chemical warfare were first shot in the head. In 2004, when Jacek Kugler brought the power transition model to the World Bank from the U.S. National War College, Jacek told me that we had 5 years to prevent a nuclear war in Syria. During the last 13 years, so far we've managed to avoid this. What have we been doing to prevent the outbreak of World War III? Why, we've been exposing the banking cartel. The banking cartel is using its highly placed agents to try and destroy the United States of America. We have exposed these traitors and bankrupted them. All of the U.S. Congress are agents of the banking cartel. So is Donald Trump. So are the governors of the 50 states and their adjutants general. So is General Dunford. So is Muriel Bowser, Washington, D.C.'s mayor. So is Neil Gorsuch. Qatar, who has all of this natural gas, wanted to run a natural gas pipeline through Syria to reach the European market. Who is supplying the European market with gas? Russia. All this business about dead babies and sarin gas is just all to keep us confused. So naturally, now is the time that the banking cartel is trying to fake everybody out and make them think the U.S. dollar is under pressure. The Federal Reserve note is unconstitutional and is getting replaced in the global currency reset. First, the banking cartel blames North Korea. Then Reuters blames soft U.S. data. And a sock puppet, that is a person who's using a fake identity, criticized me of being a gatekeeper. YouTube has sock puppets question whether I'm a gatekeeper when my transparent record shows that I have consistently preserved the world's assets in the global debt facility. Who would I be a gatekeeper for when not a single embassy has questioned whether I speak on behalf of the world's peoples on matters involving the global debt facility? When I speak for the U.S. people until the Constitution of 1789 goes back into effect via an Article 5 Constitutional Convention. When I am cutting off the interest payments to the banking cartel and offsetting that scam called country debt, all the while decentralizing and turning corporate governance back to the people in their countries, and last but not least, preventing agents of the banking cartel from usurping U.S. military might. General Dunford is not going to succeed in surrendering the United States military unilaterally through a crash of the unconstitutional Federal Reserve note. I'd like to show you an email that I received on October 4th, 2015, from one of the enlisted troops. Here is what the U.S. military has to say about this treason. Quote, I've been helping medias for the past 3 years, Press TV, RT, and several others, and I've been on the front line, and I've seen things that people never thought existed. I have ties to the militias and military. We have 70% of the U.S. military on our side. Close quote. In an editorial in the New York Times, General John Spencer was trying to isolate the U.S. military from social media to shield the traitors like General Dunford from the truth. This has only backfired, and with this, General Dunford is doubly exposed as a bully and a coward, and above all, a traitor. And I see that we have some time in the teleprompter. I've been giving a lot of background information, and that's to show you that we're actually all working together and that there is an actual coalition for the rule of law. I've shown you that what I'm telling you is reality, and what you are hearing from the banking cartel is simply lies. This is the global currency reset. Humanity has to stop listening to lies and choose reality. I don't know how long we're going to have this choice. It's taken me a lot of effort to bring us to this fork in the road. What's very interesting to me is how things in my personal life help teach me what I need to do on the world stage. I've been getting a lot of help from all corners of my life. Many of my friends and family members are unable to see the truth, but some of them are convinced, and some of them are still sitting on the fence. That's just like the rest of humanity. Fortunately, A critical mass of people are now aware that I have been telling the truth. Perhaps this is enough to save humanity. We all have to hope so. What I'm doing is to try to buy us enough time so that we'll all end up in reality. The longer we have, the more of us are able to figure out the difference from truth and lies. And I have a selfie, which I posted in November, which is showing you how I'm overcoming interference. And there's a picture in the teleprompter showing that I'm wearing noise reduction earmuffs. That's because my landline was cut through an electric short. That happened because, well, I don't know why it actually happened. It might have been some interference by the banking cartel. But in any event, I was having a hard time working because there was a high-pitched alarm interfering with my ability to do work in my home office. And I tried to get Verizon to restore service and end the high-pitched alarm, but Verizon wouldn't send their service people and instead insisted that I give them the account number associated with my landline. I didn't have my account number because I pay my bill through a recurring payment on my American Express card. My husband was back home for the day to supervise the group fixing our broken air conditioning. You may remember that our basement was flooded during our family vacation in Canada the first week of August, and the furnace and air conditioner broke. It's taken 6 months almost to restore air conditioning because the claims process on our home insurance took a long time to settle. The landline is in my husband's name, and he tried to get Verizon to repair our phone, but no dice. And so I finally convinced Verizon to send out a repair person. I gave Verizon the reference number that Verizon gave American Express the last time the recurring phone bill was paid. The earliest time that Verizon could repair the phone and end the annoying alarm was the day following the tweet. So that's why I needed to keep on wearing noise protectors. Why am I telling you this? It's to give you some idea of what life is like when you're a whistleblower firing the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for treason, making sure that people understand that Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are not in real elections when the Electoral College has been suspended along with the rest of the U.S. Constitution of 1789, and convincing Germany's and Japan's military attachés that the only way they're going to be protected under their treaties with the U.S. is if they continue to recognize the global currency reset that the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF have previously approved. I made sure to email Japan's and Germany's military attachés in case they missed my tweets. I also spoke with a person in the office in the Japanese embassy in Washington earlier that day. And then you'll see in the teleprompter what the email was that I sent to Germany and Japan. And I see that people are scrolling, so does that mean you want me to do the outro? I want to thank you for listening to another segment. No. Okay. Keep reading for the teleprompter. Well, I uploaded the broadcast on DCTV again this morning, and I edited the YouTube video to include the entire screenshot of Betsy Malone's blog. I had uploaded the video showing what aired on DCTV's Tuesday series on the network of global corporate control immediately after the show aired in order to get the comments, which are an important part of the global currency reset. All of humanity is united to bring our wealth out of hiding and to break interference from the network of global corporate control. And I'm showing you some of the tweets which went on before the November. There have been a lot of really very viral tweets. One of them was about the false flag in Syria. And I'm very convinced that we are going to avoid World War III because, as I said, enough of us know that yeah, that there's a coalition for the rule of law. So in today's segment, we've discussed the World Bank whistleblower for dummies, how it is that the world's wealth in the global debt facility that was held secret, yes, that was held